If the U.S. is reducing its nuclear weapons, it's going to have stronger authority to encourage others to join in ratcheting up political pressure to get folks to join that protocol. If we're not reducing our nuclear weapons when we and the Russians control 95% of the world's total, where's our authority to ask other countries, not to proceed down the nuclear path?
This is At Brookings, a weekly in-depth look at issues behind the news. This week, the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty.
The Cold War is long over, but the U.S. and Russia still struggle over treaties to control nuclear arms proliferation and the terms of inspections. The Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty, known as START, has far wider implications in a world where many nations have developed nuclear arsenals. As expert Stephen Pfeiffer explains, it's the starting point for all other agreements. How does this treaty impact on America's national security?
The American hand is going to be strengthened in terms of arguing to raise the bar against proliferation if we're seen as reducing our nuclear weapons. Now, that's not going to help with North Korea or Iran, but I have to worry about country X, that next country that wants to acquire nuclear weapons, and we want to maximize political pressure on that country not to go down that route. It's going to be easier for the United States to do that diplomatically if we're reducing our weapons. Second, the treaty contributes to a better U.S.-Russia relationship, and that's already yielded some very tangible benefits for the United States. First and foremost, Russia over the last year and a half has taken a much tougher stance on Iran than we saw in the previous 7 years. And I think that's a result of the New START treaty and the better relationship between Moscow and Washington that's resulted. There's one other point about the New START treaty that I think we have to bear in mind is that with the treaty, we have verification measures, including data exchanges and notifications and on-site inspections that are going to give the United States a lot more information about Russian strategic forces than we would have otherwise. That's good because it gives us more confidence in our information. It allows the U.S. military to avoid worst-case assumptions and to make smarter decisions about how the United States operates its strategic forces.
If you could just sort of summarize what the terms of the treaty are.
The treaty basically has three numerical limits. It limits both the United States and Russia to no more than 1,550 strategic warheads. And that counts the actual number of warheads on intercontinental ballistic missiles and submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and then it uses it as an attribution rule. Each bomber will count as one warhead under the 1550 limit. The second limit is each side can deploy no more than 700 intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and heavy bombers equipped for nuclear armaments. And then there's a third limit of 800, which actually counts launchers. So it would allow for things such as, as well as deployed launchers, it would also count non-deployed launcher. A non-deployed launcher would be something like a submarine missile tube with no missile in it. And that's important to the United States because typically we'll have 2 of our ballistic missile submarines in port for long-term overhaul. They won't have any missiles on board. Under the New START treaty, those launchers will count as non-deployed launchers in the least restrictive limitation.
Does the START treaty in any way limit missile defense?
The treaty has no meaningful limit on missile defense. There is a mention in the preamble that says there's an interrelationship between offense and defense, but that's simply a statement of reality. One side's defensive forces will affect the other side's offensive forces. But being in the preamble, it poses no limitations on the sides. Now, additionally, in Article 5 of the treaty, there is one constraint, and it says that neither side can put a missile defense interceptor into an old ICBM silo that's been converted or into a ballistic missile launch tube on a submarine. Now, that prevents us from doing things that we would never do in any case. For example, the Air Force has done both. They've converted an old ICBM silo to hold a missile defense interceptor, and they built a brand new silo for a missile defense interceptor. They find it costs $20 million less to build the new silo. So a prohibition that says you can't convert an old ICBM silo to have a missile defense interceptor, which we wouldn't do because it's $20 million more expensive, that ought to be a limitation that we can live with.
Well, if the United States and Russia are friendly, if not friends, why do we need a nuclear arms treaty anyway?
We're not doing on-site inspections in Russia today. We don't have data exchanges going on, and we haven't done that for a year since the START 1 treaty expired back in December of 2009. I don't lie awake late at night worrying about a Russian nuclear attack, but I still think we Americans are safer and more secure if there is a reduction in any limitation on Russian strategic forces. So I think the treaty it makes sense in arms control terms. It reduces forces, but it still allows the United States to maintain a robust nuclear deterrent.
Stay up to date with the latest research, learn about Brookings events, and search our directory of experts, all from your mobile device. To download Brookings for your BlackBerry, Android, or iPhone, go to brookings.edu/mobile.